and welcome back. Another great episode of Deerfield Fantasy Shots. I'm your bartender tonight, Dan Theory at Theory BFF. Thursday, we typically bring you guys a segment called Keep an Eye Out on. Keep an Eye on. Basically, we just kind of go over situations throughout the NFL in terms of the four major positions, and kind of give you guys my thoughts and sometimes the show thoughts as a whole of certain things you guys should be keeping your eye on. Guys, you should be maybe premature adding in your waivers or not your waiver, or, through your free agency pool, and just overall spots to where it may not seem great. Welcome back to week 2 of football. Starts tonight. Bengals Texans. That game will be fucking disgusting. I expect very little points, and both of the defenses are top plays for me this week. But we're going to jump in straight to the segment. I hope this isn't running too long, so I'll try to jump through these quickly. Quarterbacks, Sam Bradford, if he has another great week against a tough matchup against Pittsburgh, I know Pittsburgh isn't a great defensive matchup, but it's on the road. It's kind of an important game just to see as a whole was last week, um, not the truth, not something we should expect, or for something that we should expect going on throughout the season. I believe if Bradford has a good game, he becomes a week out starter from here on out. Cam Newton, kind of the backwards of Bradford, looked pretty mediocre against a really good matchup against the Niners last week. I expect them to continue to want to run the football, protect Cam, protect his shoulder. The Bengals or the Bills, excuse me, had looked pretty good against the Jets last week. I know it's the Jets, but they completely destroyed their run game. Um, so I expect Cam to. I don't know how great of a week he's going to have, but if he has another bad week, he now becomes a low-end streaming option. I know Hopper's already there with him, but at least for me and Nick, I want to for sure see how he performs against Buffalo this week. Next is Jared Goff. I just want to see if he can um, carry over his week 1 performance against a better defense like the Redskins, a better overall team, where the game should be close throughout. I just want to see how he handles it, and if he does well, I can see him as a decent flex option, or excuse me, a decent streaming option against good matchups going on in the future. Then lastly is Jacoby Brissett. I just want to see what he does and what value he's going to add to all the rest of the playmakers here, especially Ty. I'm just going to monitor and see how that game looks for him. Moving on to running backs, this is a decent amount, so I'll try to get through these quickly. Chris Carson, I believe he's maybe listed as a starter. I know Rawls has been a full participant, but I want to see what Carson does this week. Lacey should not be a factor, but Rawls is back and healthy, should be. I want to see what this looks like now, and because if Rawls has a bad week, in my mind, if Rawls has a bad week, Carson could take over that role completely by next week, and you could have yourself an RB1 for measly nothing. Now, if he's still out in your free agent pool and you have the bench stash to hold him, I definitely would pick him up. He's worth that. Like I said, if you have the bench stash, ask us who your players are. Tweet out at us at BeerfieldFF. Um, Guys who you're maybe looking to drop from, but Chris Carson could be the guy to own here. Um, Moving on, Arizona running backs. I just want to see who steps up and takes over and potentially takes over this backfield against a favorable matchup. Next is Wayne Gallman. We were low on him as a show following watching his tape. He landed a good spot with the Giants. Looks to be the best Giants running back at this point. If Perkins continues to struggle, Darkwa is really not a thing. Gallman could find himself as the starter sooner than later. Still not a great backfield, and Vereen's still the safest to own. But Gallman is kind of the bigger wild card here because we don't really quite know what he is at this point. Philadelphia running backs, Sproles outsnapped everyone on this roster, or every other running back, excuse me, I believe at 39. Blunt, I believe, at 24, and Smallwood really didn't do much. I just want to see how this turns out. Again, this week's against a better Chiefs team. Sproles is probably the safest, Blunt gives you the best chance to score, and will probably see more starts than any other running back in this backfield in terms of your fantasy team. Next is Fat Rob versus Samaje Perine. Fat Rob didn't look great last week against Philadelphia. They have maybe even a tougher matchup against the Rams with Donald back. If he struggles, Perine should finally see his first carry, maybe first touch at least, and we could now start to see what Samaji's value is going forward. Right now, he is droppable. If you own him, drop him. But after this week and how this running back situation plays out, this one definitely needs to be monitored. Next is Alvin Kamara, excuse me. He all snapped the Saints backfield last week against the Vikings Monday night. That may have been game script, as the Saints were down for the majority of the game. But I expect I expect them to kind of overwrite the ship with Peterson, give him double the touches. They brought him in for a reason. Mark Ingram can do it all, and he's probably the safer back to own right now, but that could change as soon as at the end of this week if Kamara, who has a great matchup in terms of what we expect from this game, he's definitely a guy you should keep your eye on. He's probably owned in a fair amount of leagues and probably isn't in your free agent pool, but if he is worth a speculative av before waivers kick in. Next is the Cincinnati running backs. I'll speak about this in a news episode, but I expect Mixon. They said that Mixon isn't going to see his work share increase. It's still going to be the same, which is really disgusting. So as of right now, Gio is the safest, Mixon's the highest upside, and Hill is just a thing. Hill is droppable at this point, and I still expect Mixon to eventually earn the #1 spot, but it may take a little while longer than we all expected. Next is Kareem Hunt and Charizard West. Love Charizard. Woo! Go Pokemon. Anyways, I just want to see it with Hunt had a 59% snap count last week, which may have been game script, but the game was fairly close until the fourth quarter. I want to see if West gets more involved. I even want to see what they do with Spiller now that he's back on the team after they play the area on IR. Hunt's all they got to own. Hunt is at this point an RB2 at the worst, as he'll be involved the most in the passing game, which is where all that floor comes from. But I just want to see this week if Wes will earn a little more touches, as he only saw one carry, even though he was out on the field nearly as much as Hunt was. Next is Mike Tolbert. Bills backup running backs have been flex worthy for the last couple of years. When Anthony Lynn left for the Chargers, we kind of expected that maybe they throw more, run less, but then they trade Watkins and Tyrod's still kind of Tyrod. They may not really change much at all. I mean, Tolbert had 13 touches, 12 carries, 1 reception, and in good matchups, he could then even see a touchdown at some point. He is no Jonathan Williams or Mike Gillislee of last year, but he still has a chance to maybe see some flex value. So just keep an eye on him and what his usage rate looks like after this game. Right now, the next is Indy running backs. With as bad as Indy's offense looked and as bad as we all expect it to be, they're going to be in garbage time a lot, which doesn't really help Frank Gore or Frank Gore owners. I have a bench grade on Frank Gore this week. There's no reason you should start him against the Cardinals. This just means more Marlon Mack. Maybe they want to see what they have in this rookie even more so. At least until Luck comes back or Brissett can show somewhat of a resemblance of a passing game. As of right now, just watch to see who steps up and maybe something happens. Last is the Texans running back core. Bill O'Brien came out and said that they want to give Foreman more work, which almost means better for Lamar Miller just because Miller does better with less volume. I know it's kind of weird, but he's not really a workhorse back. We've already seen that. Miami was right on this and not giving him a lot of touches during his time there, which is a good thing for them. But the Texans need him to step up Speaking of Foreman, just because they don't have a passing game at this point. Watson's still a running back, or well, Watson is still a rookie. Excuse me. They don't want to just throw him out, to the wolves so soon, even though they had to with how bad Tom Savage looked. So, just a situation to keep your eyes on. Moving on to receivers. Uh, First up is Bears. Who is the Bears' new number one receiver? Is it going to be Kendall Wright? Is it going to be um, Bellamy? Is it going to be the newly brought up Tanner Gentry? I mean, it's not a great situation, but most receivers should be owned, and every number one receiver on a team should be owned for the most part, just because of the potential upside. Next is the Galladay versus Marvin Jones situation. Jones outsnapped Galladay 68-44, but Galladay out-targeted Jones 7-2. I just want to see if this trend continues. I expect the snap count to kind of even out, which could spell Jones as a new number 3, and then promote Galladay as a number 2, which you could see big numbers some weeks. Next is Seattle's number 2 receiver. It was Paul Richardson last week. I believe Pete Carroll came out and said they want to get Tyler Lockett some more touches, just use him more. He's very talented, and he's shown what he could. He's shown flashes of what he could be on an offense like Seattle's passing offense. I just want to see who takes the step up. Is it more Richardson again, or does Tyler Lockett eat into that a lot more? Next is the Giants receiving core. Odell came out and said that he expects his injury to last 6 to 8 weeks of that recovery time, which I'll speak more of in the news segment later on tonight. This isn't great for those owners, but if you have them, you have to start them. And now what does this mean for Marshall and Sterling Shepard? Sterling Shepard was the guy to own last week, I guess. As Marshall did shit, but he looked really bad. But with Odell out there, it does give a huge benefit to a guy like Marshall who won't see rolling coverage as much, and for like Shepard who may see his targets decrease. I just want to see how that plays out on Monday night against the Lions. Next is John Ross, who plays tonight. We're pretty low on him as a show, but he was a ninth pick overall by the Bengals for a reason. They're starving for number 2 receiver. They're starving for more playmakers on this offense, and he'll come in. He may not show up this week, but this is more of a speculative ad. If he's in the free agency pool, I would wait a week, see how he plays tonight, how they want to use him, and then maybe going forward, he's not a bad post-waiver pre-breakout type of period where you have him without giving up much in terms of your waiver side of fab, and then you can kind of ride off in the sunset if he hits. Next is Martavis Bryant. I think we all kind of forgot that he hadn't really played in the NFL for a couple of years. He's either been hurt or suspended, and he showed that rust last week. He's got a terrible matchup against the Vikings, though Pittsburgh's home, so this really can mean anything. Excuse me, but if Brian doesn't do great this week as well, he may have earned himself a bench spot until proven otherwise. Because a lot of people have come down off of him from all that hype after the Browns game. So it's more of a wait and see what they do with him. Next is New England's number 2 receiver. Amendola just keeps getting hurt, on and off hurt. When he starts in place, he's probably a must start just because he'll get all the Julian Edelman targets. But for now, we need to see who takes this number 2 role over. Is it Chris Hogan? Is it the newly traded for Philip Brissett? Is it going to be Amendola if he can stay healthy? This is a great matchup in terms of just how much points should be scored in this game, which has shed some light on the situation as a whole. Next is the Jets' number 1 receiver. Who takes over? Jermaine Kearse, Robbie Anderson. As I said about the Bears, every number 1 receiver should be owned on a roster at the very least. Jermaine Kearse could provide you some of that great garbage time points that we used to love and see from A-Rob and Blake Bortles back in 2015. The Jets are going to be batted down a lot, and as long as McCown is healthy, he is at least competent enough to get his receivers to football. Kearse had 9 targets, or Robbie Anderson had 8 targets. Kearse caught 7 of his, though, and Robbie only caught 4 of his. So at this point, it's who takes over. Next is Devante Parker versus Jarvis Landry. Basically, terrible matchup, but I want to see who steps up. I want to see who Cutler targets the most, what their snap count looks like, things of that nature. We're all high on Parker, but we forgot. A lot of people forget how good Landry is as a slot receiver, though. Just like with the Jets and the Bears, who is Jacksonville's #1 receiver? More like the Bears, because they lost their #1 in A-Rob. Is it Hearns? Is it Lee? Um, I just want to see who steps up and takes that spot. Basically who stays healthy. Lastly is Corey Davis. I wasn't expecting him to be as fantasy relevant this soon. He led the Titans in targets last week, but this was also a game where they threw the ball a lot more than I expected them to. They were in this game throughout, and it was just it was shocking to see Mariota throw the ball 41 times, where this is mostly just a hit you fucking hard with the run, and they have two good running backs and a really good offensive line to get you there. I expect them to right the ship in terms of running the ball more this game against Jacksonville, even though it's a bad matchup as well. I just want to see if Davis continues to lead the team in targets. I don't think that trend will be every week, but I just want to see if he takes that next step. That he's 1 week closer to building chemistry with Mariota and to be healthier. Next are tight ends. I'll make this quick. Graham does the trend of last week roll over to week 2, which he blocked a shit ton. He's got a hell of a good matchup. If he struggles this week, though, that could mean some bad things going forward if they don't trust their offensive line to the point where they bring in Jimmy Graham, who isn't a good blocker, to block. Next is Cameron Braid versus O.J. Howard. This is huge. This is the biggest one out of this group I want to monitor even more than the next ones I talk about soon. And that's what does, excuse me about my mic there, whatever, video. Anyways, I just want to see what Howard does, what their snap count is, what their target share is, what happens in this backfield. Not backfield, but with this tight end core. Most people drafted Howard over Braid, which is shocking to us because Braid is still the receiving guy to own here. And I just want to see if that holds true, if we were on. This is a big one for me. Next is Pittsburgh's tight ends. They traded for Vance McDonald. He only saw 30% of shares. Well, Jesse saw 70%. Does this more even out going forward? And was Jesse James's week 1 an anomaly, or is it the truth? Next is the Chargers, the other big tight end group to watch. Does week 1 spill over into week 2, where Hunter Henry just blocked while Gates got more snaps and more targets? Do they right Henry's ship, or is this kind of what we should be expecting going forward? And lastly, Gary Barnidge is scheduled, I believe, to meet with Houston tomorrow. I believe that's what I heard. Maybe even today, and then see what happens there. Because they have no tight ends there. I mean, everyone's concussed, which is really sad. But they're starving for a second target to throw to. As much as I love Hopkins, it hurts him when he's literally the only guy to cover there. I don't like a Jalen Strawn back, but that he hasn't done shit. He's been hurt or suspended even. That's all I have for keep an eye on. Sorry that this ran a little bit later than I expected. As always, please follow us, like us, subscribe to us, review us, comment, whatever. YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football Shots. If you guys are watching this, you guys obviously know what it's called. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BeerfieldFF. Sorry, I haven't been very active on Instagram. I've been kind of busy trying to schedule my life a little bit better with football back. And then like, subscribe, leave reviews on YouTube. It helps us hugely. I love being in the top 20. The show does as well. But you guys leaving comments, leaving ratings on us. Tell us how we're doing. If we suck, tell us that we suck. If you want to tell Hopper shut the fuck up, tell Hopper shut the fuck up. Do these things. It helps us grow and provide you guys with better content moving forward. We're still very new to this. I will be back to do the news some point tonight. Otherwise, I'll see you guys then. Peace.